Hello, welcome everybody. This is Dr. Barry Arouk, now back again for another amazing, or hopefully amazing show. Again, this is the Health and Wellness Connection Podcast Radio Network, broadcasting live on Afro Vibes Radio. This goes out to all the listeners all over the world listening. Thank you for tuning in, as well as all of those people on SoundCloud checking us out. Again, if you're not aware, on SoundCloud, we can be found at www.soundcloud.com/HWConnection, all one word. Again, www.soundcloud.com/HWConnection. And of course, Dr. Barry, who I am, you can find me on Instagram at Dr. Barry MD. Again, DRBARRYMD. All right, so thank y'all for coming back and joining us today. Now, today's topic is kind of a unique, well, not really unique, but it's a special topic. I think it's definitely apropos, if you will, given kind of the overall climate of the world today, to be honest, but especially the United States. We're going to talk about stress, the dangers of stress, and kind of what stress really entails and why we all need to really be more focused on helping manage stress and so forth. Now let's talk about kind of what stress is. Now, according to Webster's dictionary, stress is basically a constraining force or influence, such as a physical, chemical, or emotional factor that causes bodily or mental tension and may be a factor in disease causation. Again, stress is just a very complex thing because it actually can affect us in many different ways. And if you're not cognizant of it, you can clearly be unaware of it until it's too late. Now, the thing about stress, because it can result from a lot of different issues, including environmental issues, or let's say you're caught up in a war zone and there's a lot of bombs going off around you and guns whizzing behind your head and so forth. That's definitely a very stressful situation. Or it could be an emotional issue, or let's say a problem with a spouse or a girlfriend or boyfriend, and heart's broken and so forth, and you get worked up and upset, and those are also, can be just as traumatizing, even though it may not sound as serious. On an emotional level, it can be have a similar effect. Death of a loved one, that's another very intensely stressful situation, especially if you're close to this loved one. Now, there's some unique situations where, you have a loved one who was, maltreating someone, and that could potentially de-stress. That's probably pretty rare, but more likely than not, a loved one passing is extremely stressful. And that's something that can also, cause major psychological and biochemical changes within your body. So things about stress is that learning how to identify the stressors in your life is critical because, as we'll see in a little bit, stress, if it's not properly attended to and addressed, can definitely cause significant long-term health issues that you really don't want to have to deal with. Now, another thing about stress is that stress actually causes the body to actually release certain hormones that can put the body in a certain state to deal with it better. Now, this is generally referred to as a flight or fight response, if you will. So let's say you're walking on the street and some large tiger shows up, ready to eat you alive. You're going to be on edge, right? This is a natural response, and you're going to decide if you're going to engage this animal or if you're going to take off. Now, the smart thing would probably be to take off because a lion is going to do some damage if it were to encounter you. But that reaction is a very unique biochemical reaction that occurs. One of the main hormones involved in this reaction is cortisol, and that's something we can actually measure. And cortisol levels have been known to increase during periods of stressful situations. Now, long-term effects of this cortisol increase is multivariate, but we do know that these elevated levels of cortisol and other stress-induced hormones can increase the risk of various ailments, including heart attacks, strokes, causing a weakening of the immune system, increase in weight. depression and anxiety issues, digestive problems like irritable bowel syndrome and other issues, and even autoimmune diseases. So the issue with stress and it being not properly managed can have significant effects on your health and mental wellness. And because, weight gain is a big issue that I like to focus on, de-stressing is probably one of the most important things anyone can do to increase their overall wellness, especially if you're trying to lose weight. Now, unfortunately, because of the nature of society and how we've learned to deal with things, stress management is very oftentimes turned into an excuse to imbibe heavily in intoxicants, if you will, or drugs. Unfortunately, with a high stress level that people have to deal with on a daily basis, the easy way to manage such stress levels is to have a drink or 10 or smoke this crack or something else that would is supposed to give you a short-term relief. Now, drug use in general is pretty bad. Very rarely you can use a drug safely for many years and not have any long-term issues. But you want to be careful as far as how you learn to cope with stress. And using drugs is typically not a good idea. However, that being said, there's many states now actually choosing or adopting policies involving marijuana for anxiety and stress, and that's something that may not be a good idea, especially if it's illegal in your state. But if you are in a state where it's legal, that may be something you can also consider. Only because there are some studies showing that can have some beneficial aspects to using that in a certain, medical controlled environments. Unfortunately, due to the market currently, there's a lot of poison out there being sold as marijuana, so you want to be careful. And definitely only if you're in a state that's legal. You don't want to lose your freedom behind some sort of medication. Anyways, that being said, now with using drugs and other things, you want to focus on natural methods of managing stress, and because ideally with stress and it being a normal part of everyone's life, it's something that you're going to have to learn how to manage over the long term. And relying on substances or items to relieve stress can have an issue, especially if those substances are addicting in their long-term use. Now, that's very common with both prescription and non-prescription drugs, so you just want to be careful in general. But drugs definitely do have their place, especially when non-pharmacological methods have failed, and especially in conjunction with a physician who can help guide you on some of the better prescription options that may be out there. But again, stress, its effects, extremely dangerous, and it's very important that people who have or in a situation where they deem to be very stressful, be it a bad marriage or a particularly intense job, you want to be very careful how long you allow yourself to be exposed to such continued issues, even if there is some sort of long-term payoff that you're banking on and and that being the reason why you're allowing yourself to endure such issues. Because over the long term, the effects of continued stress not being addressed can be very dangerous and, in fact, deadly. So you want to be very careful as far as how you allow that to happen. Now, of course, when dealing with people like family, let's say you have a family member who's, been causing increased stress in your everyday life, cutting someone off like that may not be, the best option. But, expressing some of your concerns to that individual and hoping you can come to a conclusion or an agreement where you can kind of minimize the stress that you're causing one another is probably the best option. Period. Now, overall, I think it's important that everyone out there really look at their life, see what goes on that could be potentially giving them issues, and look at different ways of managing those. And I think after the break, for those who are not sure some of the best ways to figure out ways to manage their stress without pharmacological agents or with minimal use of those agents. Now, before going into different different ways to manage stress, one other thing I wanted to bring to your attention was actually how dangerous unchecked stress can be on the human condition. Now, if I were to tell you that there was something you were doing every day that if you didn't stop doing it would probably kill you in about 10 to 15 years, you'd probably stop wanting to do it. Now, assuming you weren't addicted to something that was harmful, it would probably be something you would try to quit immediately. And if you were addicted, you would probably go and seek help, be it professional or personal, to help you get off whatever harmful exposure. To help you get off whatever exposure to whatever harmful substance you're being exposed to was. But people don't understand that stress in itself can be extremely dangerous and extremely deadly. This has actually been proven via numerous studies. One particular study I wanted to bring to your attention was actually a study out of a cardiovascular journal talking about heart attacks and people who had them and kind of what was going on in their lives at the time. And in this study, over 5,000 people who were actually sufferers of coronary disease were given regular surveys asking them about their various stress levels and depression levels. And it was found that those who had significant stress and depression were far more likely to have a heart attack than those who had either one or the other or neither. So in this particular case, the combination of being stressed out as well as being depressed caused a markedly increased risk in these patients actually dying of heart attack. Now, the exact reason behind how stress causes that, as we've already described, is very complex and has to do with a significant amount of hormones and other body processes that are negatively affected by increased stress. But the bottom line is that stress kills. So it's extremely important that anyone who's serious about maintaining, improving their wellness and improving their health find effective ways to help reduce their stress. Literally, your life depends on it. After the break, we'll discuss a little bit more about effective ways to help reduce stress. And of course, we're going to focus on the natural methods because we all know that drugs and alcohol don't actually take away the stress. They just allow you to deal with the idea of you being stressed. And that's not how you want to address the situation overall. Now, another excellent way of managing stress and dealing with some of the stressful issues you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis is keeping a journal. A journal is important because it can help you write down some of those stressful issues that you're encountering on a day-to-day basis, but are unable to really find someone that you can talk with and really feel comfortable expressing yourself honestly to them. A journal can help you organize your thoughts and write them down in such a way that can help you make better sense of what your stressors are and why they're stressing you. Plus, a journal is a great way to monitor your state of mind throughout the day and over time. If you can see your written words of how certain stresses you're encountering are affecting your overall psyche and outlook, it could be a very excellent way to quantify the effect various stresses are having on you on a day-to-day basis. It can also be an excellent way for you to figure out ways to better cope with stress and ultimately, hopefully, freeing yourself from such stressors. Plus, your journal can be an excellent tool for your psychiatrist to use in case you are unable to deal with them on your own and need professional help, which is an excellent option and something I always recommend. Seeing a psychiatrist or a psychologist for that matter is also an excellent way helping you dealing with stress, especially a psychologist or a psychiatrist who's willing to do extensive psychotherapy. And by psychotherapy, it means simply sitting down and talking at length about your issues and trying to come with a way to cope with those issues by simply talking and strategizing and making plans. Psychiatrists can also or a psychologist as well can also help you organize your thoughts and keep you on some sort of a schedule to help you figure out the best overall way to deal with such stressors. So overall, stress is one of those very, very common things that we deal with on a day-to-day basis and can have severely serious ramifications if not properly managed, yet very little attention is paid to it by people on a day-to-day basis. So hopefully this show brought some of the dangers of stress to you and made hopefully some sense as far as how stress could be potentially hurting you and the importance of dealing with the stress or the stressors as they come, as opposed to putting them on the back burner and worrying about them later. For more in-depth conversation on stress and stress management, please check out the blog, www.controlyourweight.com, as well as other amazing sources online, including medscape.com and other fantastic healthcare providers in your local area. Thanks for tuning in to the Dr. Barry's Health and Wealth podcast.